watching America Trends. I'm Mary Burke Godwin. We have a very special guest with us today. You know, there's a crisis in our country, in San Diego, but all over, in cities all over the country, the homelessness crisis. And we've talked about it on the show a little bit. We had former Mayor Faulkner here in studio a few weeks ago talking about how cities are approaching this. And I have believed for a long time that it needs to be a holistic approach and not just taking tents away and making people go to a certain place and then forgetting about them 5 days, 10 days later. It needs to start at the root cause of why they're even there in the first place. So we have a very special guest. Her name is Chez. She is the executive director and founder of We See You San Diego, which I love the name. So welcome to America Trends, Laura.
Thank you,
Chez.
Mary. I'm so honored to be with you.
I'm really happy you're here.
Yeah.
One of our producers helped us find you, and I just love that you're here because I was reading all about you and your story and what you're doing for the city of San Diego, this homelessness crisis, and helping people be seen.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's kind of a buzz phrase maybe now, but it's real.
No, it's real. And it's definitely a key part of being able to help somebody.
Yes.
Seeing them.
Yep. And having them feel seen in order to want to make a step to make change, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So before we dive into all of that, I'd love to hear how you ended up. I read a little bit online, and I just love the story of how you ended up here in San Diego and in this work.
Yeah.
You're not from here.
Not from here. I'm actually from New York. I was in Queens. I was on a treadmill one day at the gym listening to a podcast about homelessness. I had never worked with people that were homeless before. And as I was listening to it, tears started streaming down my face. Like, it probably looked like a really intense workout. I wound up leaving the gym because I didn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. And I went home.
You and I will get along great, because I think that's happened to me a few times.
Yeah. And I felt the pierce in my heart that I was going to be involved in some way. Shortly after that, my family and I had an opportunity to move to San Diego, but the first thing I looked up was the crisis. I knew a little bit about the crisis in Manhattan, where I was surrounded by homelessness there. But when I saw the level of crisis in San Diego, I thought, okay, well, that little seed that's in my heart, maybe it's to go there and do something. So that's really what it started like as an idea. Didn't know what it was going to look like. And when my family and I moved to San Diego, one of the first things we did, just trying to plug ourselves into this, we moved across the nation. We needed to find community quick. So we checked out some churches in the area. And at one, we were there just checking it out, and we heard they do a little dinner for people that live on the streets. And I told my husband, you should go to that, because I'm going to work with the homeless. And I didn't know anything, Mary, knew nothing. He went, and on that night, the people that were hosting this dinner, with only about 8 to 10 people as guests.
Wasn't it just like a pizza dinner or something?
Pizza and soda. They were moving to Northern California and needed someone to take over. And they asked my husband, would you and your family do this? And he gave my husband the key to the church.
What?
Yeah.
I love these divine appointments.
It was.
Stories, right?
It was.
It's just meant to be. Serendipity. Yeah.
So when he came home, I said, how was that dinner? Was it dangerous? And he's like, no, weirdo, no. And we're in charge of it. And he said, NPS. And he said, but what I think we should do is cook what we would eat at home with the kids.
I love that.
And so that was his idea. And then,
by we, did he mean you? Cook?
Actually, I was like,
get to the real story.
Mary, I was a horrible cook at the time. I've become a good cook through what we're doing at We See You. But he started the crock pots and the rice and the salad. So he started it, and then we all just went the next week. And I love people, so I sat right down at the picnic table and just started talking to people.
I love it.
And it's grown from there.
So where did you host it?
It was at a church called Resolved. It was in the Morena district, close to Mission Valley. It is actually adjacent to where the Mission Valley YMCA is. I would just call it Central San Diego. It's 10 minutes from downtown, but it's right there alongside the riverbed of San Diego, where there's a crisis of its own.
And how did you get, because then it started with 8 people, and now what is it up to?
Oh my goodness, some nights, it depends on the night, but it could be 100, it could be 150. Sometimes there's 250 people. No RSVPs when you're working with people who live on the streets of San Diego.
Who don't have Evite at their
paperless post.
Right.
They don't respond to that.
No. So, gosh, so many questions.
Yeah.
Now, I love the concept of having the crock pot, having the what we would eat at home,
Right.
because that brings a level of humanity to it.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And then you're obviously an engaging person. I'm sure your family is as well. So getting down there, sitting at the picnic table, and then getting to know who these people are. Now, was there moments of this is scary or something is threatening or maybe we need to adjust how we do this? Or did you have people show up that, you felt really comfortable and it was all good?
It's really, it's an interesting question. It's a really good question. But I have never felt afraid. And I think the reason why is because when you treat people with dignity, respect, honor, and love, they meet you there.
Yeah.
So that's what I found, and it's not a secret. It's just like, no, when you treat me with respect, it's like, oh, thank you for respecting me. I'm going to respect you too.
Yeah.
And so it was that, and just that knowing like we're there to be love. So sitting down, all of a sudden, like trust started being built, but it was that consistency week after week. So I never felt fear because no one was doing anything threatening. They're coming to eat dinner.
Yeah.
And oh, you want to hear my name? You want to look at me in the eyes? And I think like a wall started coming down over time. At first, no one trusts you, and they'll just be in and out with no conversation. But over time, so we lead with a relationship first approach.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because so then from this you started We See You San Diego. Is that how it was born, right?
I didn't come out here to start a nonprofit. We saw a need and a very specific one, because what I learned through people sharing their stories and getting to kind of understand the landscape a little bit more is that there is a massive drug problem. The people that are living on the streets, and I'm talking about chronically homeless, not situationally homeless. It is different. The unsheltered population we see entrenched in drug addiction.
Yep.
Today looks different than it did when we started 6 years ago. We saw a lot of methamphetamine back then. We saw, we would always see alcohol and stuff like that. We would see heroin and opioids. Today we see fentanyl.
Yeah.
Give me chills.
I know, it's scary.
We see fentanyl.
Yeah.
And everything's laced with fentanyl.
Right.
So we see people now with another level of hopelessness too, because once you're on fentanyl, it feels like a prison. It feels like you're covered in chains. It feels like a death sentence.
Well, I will say even alcoholism, because I am in recovery.
Yes.
And that was one of the biggest things that how I would articulate it was that I felt chained to a bottle or something.
Yes.
And it was like, I was a functional person. I came to work every day and had my kids and my family, but still there was this inner side of me that I was able to get help for.
Yes.
It was available to me. I had lucky situation that I was able to get that help. But there are people that don't necessarily have the help readily available to them.
Right.
So I love that this is that approach, because that is the bottom line. People need to get help from their addiction. You can't just take their tent away and say, oh, it's fixed, right?
You cannot. And we've found some broken pieces in the system where it feels almost impossible for people.
So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Actually, we have to take a quick break. Sure. And I feel like we could do a whole show with you. This is amazing what you're doing. We've got Laura Chez here. She is the founder of We See You San Diego. And we'll be right back after this quick break. Thanks.